Okay, welcome. This is the third of 3 videos in an attempt to try to organize our thoughts around who to vote for this election. The first video was basically an introduction, sort of talking about the purpose of why I'm shooting these videos and who the intended audience is. The second video has to do with 5 key issues that I feel like are the issues that we need to address when making our decision on who we should vote for President of the United States. If you haven't watched the first and second video, please stop this video, go back and watch those videos, because the content that I'm going to include here won't make 100% sense. You won't have all the detail behind it unless you've already watched those first 2 videos. In this video, I'm going to talk about who I would vote for related to the top 5 issues that I think are the most important. So let's just state the obvious. The choices that we have before us do not seem to be stellar. We've got Trump, who seems to be capable, has built a great business, but has some flaws in his personality and the way he approaches, the way he communicates, those kinds of things. Maybe some potential issues with women, some questionable stuff. With Hillary, we've got a slew of scandals and lawsuits and money transferring and all sorts of different things happening between our country and others, and her and her foundation and different things. So lots of different things to consider. The point is, what should we really be looking at? What are the issues that we really should be measuring to make the decision? And that's the reason why I created this video. And this series of videos is to sort of focus our attention down on just the 5 issues that are the most important core issues. Okay, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the 5 in order of least important to most important. So the 5th is immigration. These have been the undertone over the course of American history. Immigration standards affect all of the other 4 voting considerations I presented in significant ways. The Supreme Court's interpretation of our Constitution could open our borders and fill the country with people who do not support or recognize the Constitution. Our national security is contingent upon a good immigration plan that is actually followed. The executive branch is led by the President, and the majority of the government workers, including border security, works under the President's authority. The current administration has ordered our border security enforcement to stand down, creating softer borders than what our Constitution and our legislative branch has ordered. As a result, our national security is compromised from within. Next, the state of our health is a heavy burden because our lifestyle choices have made us unhealthy. The cost of that burden is significantly affected by the number of people in our country. Open borders means more people to support. Next on the list is the economy. Economy hangs in the balance with some of our industries desperately needing access to workers that will do the blue-collar work that we do not have the capacity or the nationalists to do. Both candidates use the buzzword to create jobs, but the truth is that we need a strong economy with a comprehensive immigration plan so that we can get all the work done. It isn't just that we need more jobs, we need to get the work done that we have planned now. Finally, we have a humanitarian requirement for us to address immigration standards. Currently, we have a situation where we are supporting a form of slavery because of how we are handling the immigration. The entire agricultural industry is aware of this, and most of the service industry is very familiar with it. Immigrants come primarily from Mexico and are living secret lives under similar oppression that the slaves did in early America. The first generation to migrate have children who are legal citizens as a result of being born in America. The first generation dies having endured a life of slavery. They did not have the freedoms or the opportunities that people born here have, yet we need their labor to support the economy. Yes, they broke the law by coming across the border, and I understand that. But if we need the labor and do nothing to prevent the illegal immigration, then are we not also responsible? We currently have a president that has told the border security to stand down in many ways and allow the brokenness to continue. Today, immigrants are being allowed in the country with handwritten notes from their country of citizenship. There is no vetting, no security, nothing. These are the ways that the current president has responded to the bigger problem. As a result, we have reintroduced slavery into America. HRC will open borders, allowing as many as 600 million people to walk across the borders, criminals and all. While she was Secretary of State, our legal system released more than 250,000 illegal aliens. These were people that were caught and held for a crime while they were in the U.S. illegally. They were then released back into America instead of being deported. If HRC is elected, she will open our borders and turn them into a revenue generator for herself and for her elite supports. Trump will make sure a documented, comprehensive, and reasonable immigration system is implemented that meets the needs of our country now and in the future. And he will ensure that that plan is actually followed. In this particular category, my vote is for Trump because he has a comprehensive idea of what we need for immigration. He's willing to change what we're doing. He's willing to fix the laws that are not being followed because they don't work. And he's willing to put the needs of America first. So again, the fifth item is comprehensive immigration reform, and in that item, Trump gets my vote. Next is the fourth item, which is the economy. The American economy is a capitalist system. It works because people are encouraged to try things with the hope of some great rewards, both in recognition and in financial gain. Capitalism is by nature free commerce. For capitalism to work, we must be okay with various economic results. Some people will have more means and more wealth than others. By design, those with more will freely support those that are without. For our country to have a healthy economy, the free flow of capitalism must be supported and encouraged. Let's look at the way the candidates stack up in this particular area. Many of HRC's supporters would argue with capitalism in favor of libertarianism, meaning that they feel it is more important for people to be equal. It is true that every person is created equal, but every human can also choose their own path, to the extent their abilities and their value, or to degrade themselves through criminal activity or just being lazy. Their value under God may not change with either path, but they certainly bring a different value to the society they live within. We all want to be around productive and successful people because they have the means to help each other. Those with nothing can only take from others. There are certainly justified situations where we must care for those in need, but we should not push everyone to be equal, or we will soon have no one that can provide help for those in need, other than the government. But that doesn't work well, and it is not the role of the government. HRC touts the virtues of the work that the Clinton Foundation does, instead of admitting the criminal activity that she has undertaken to get support of the companies and foreign nations. The point here is that even Clinton is familiar with capitalist ways, but she is more eager to use those methods to fill her own coffers than to encourage the same growth and opportunities for the country. Make no mistake, HRC knows how to make deals that benefit her. Why wouldn't she make deals like these for our country? Let's look at those payments from foreign governments to the Clinton Foundation in more detail. We have laws limiting how much money people can donate to campaigns and limit foreign government involvement or influence in campaigns. We do not have any laws preventing foreign nations from supporting domestic charities. So the Clintons have set up a foundation to accept millions of dollars in donations, thus skirting the law. Think about it this way. If you have $10 million to live on and $100 million in a foundation that you could direct, then you would be happy with that, right? Why? Because you have influence over the funds. You make a donation to another charity that has millions of members, then who do you think those charity members are likely to vote for? You could hire a friend to write a paper that takes them an hour, and you could pay them $100,000 for that afternoon of work. There is no law against doing these things, and this is just the type of corruption that is happening within the Clinton Foundation. The big picture here is that if you have influence over enough money, then you do not actually need any of your own money. You can get people to do whatever you want or need if you have influence over enough money. Money equals influence. Each time HRC is asked about the donations to the foundation, HRC redirects the discussion to the great things the foundation is doing. Why won't she unload the details of how she gets those donations? Let's look at a few examples of how she handles American assets to build her own influence and wealth. Have you heard of Travelgate? HRC fired the travel agents when they moved into the White House and replaced them with friends. They were eventually required to fire their friends and reinstate the previous group, their methods, and their processes. Here's another one. Have you heard of Whitewater? The U.S. spent over $145 million to investigate the Clintons as a result of Whitewater. This scandal involved more of their friends and a dead business partner, and missing documents. Many friends of the Clintons went to prison for their actions during the scandal, but were later pardoned by President Clinton. Those missing documents that would have been needed to convict HRC? Well, they went missing after their business partner was found dead. A few years later, the missing documents were found in the Clintons' home. Here's another one. James Blair of Refco also worked as an outside counsel at Tyson Foods. He made cattle future trades on behalf of HRC. He somehow turned $5,000 into nearly $500,000 in a very short period of time. HRC lied, saying the trades were made by her, but they were in fact made by Mr. Blair in exchange for favors from her husband, who was at the time the governor of Arkansas. Ironically, HRC refused to release her tax records during this period, and Refco was fined more than any other company in the history of the exchange. This next one is another good example of how HRC pads donations to her foundation. HRC traveled to Russia and assisted in getting the Russian government to purchase airplanes from Boeing. 2 months following the trip, Boeing made a $900,000 donation to the Clinton Foundation, and Boeing enjoyed a healthy new contract to build airplanes bound for Russia. This next one is timely. The Clintons were investigated by the Department of Justice for foreign funds investments made by foreign countries, mainly China, to the Clinton re-election campaign, the Clinton Legal Defense Fund, and the DNC. The Department of Justice reported that the President and the First Lady were guilty of misuse of foreign funds to benefit themselves and manipulate the campaign results. They were fined. President Clinton pardoned 400 people as he was leaving office as president. Many of those pardons were negotiated by HRC in exchange for millions of dollars in donations to the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Defense Fund, and others. If you disagree with all this or think it is impossible, then let's do the math together. The president makes around $500,000 a year in salary, yet the Clintons are reported to be worth more than $300 million personally and hundreds of millions of dollars in their foundation. It is easy math to say that it would take about 300 years for them as a couple, each earning $500,000 per year, to accomplish this, assuming they did not spend a penny. Let's go back to James Blair and the Tyson's Food investment, where HRC invested $5,000 and came away with nearly $500,000 in a short amount of time. This is how you amass $300 million in less than 30 years. HRC sells freedom and American foreign policy rights. She sells our freedom to pad her own pockets. Finally, let's loop all the way back around to what this section is about, the economy. Trump has built a huge business and has worked on the opposite side of the government all of his life. He understands how business works, what it needs, and he knows how the government is manipulated by business. He has what it takes to get the economy moving in the right direction. In this particular category of the economy, my vote goes to Trump. Okay, let's jump into the next topic, which is number 3 on my list as we're working towards number 1. This particular issue is healthcare. Healthcare has become a bigger issue because the path to health seems to be obscured more than ever. Let's review some of the semantics that I mentioned in a previous video. What you think of when I say healthcare would be more accurately defined as disease care. I am talking about the state of our health. Within the discussion, I will also talk about the insurance we pay for that actually should be called disease care. That distinction is important because most people believe that their insurance enables them to have good health, but in fact, their lifestyle currently is enabling them to have poor health and to need disease care. Obamacare, also known as the ACA or Affordable Care Act, is a mess. It does not work and is very expensive. One of the reasons why you won't hear HRC refer to it as Obamacare as much as ACA is that she prefers the term Hillary Care, which is what the 1,342-page document that eventually became Obamacare was in 1993, when she helped create it. In the same period, she admitted that she knew nothing about healthcare. Yet she still pushes to spend $32 million to produce a disastrous plan for Hillary Care that eventually morphed itself into Obamacare. HRC was fined $450,000 for her misguiding efforts. All of that to say that HRC will continue with the disastrous ACA plan that will be one of the chief contributors to bankrupting the nation near the end of the 20s if it is not replaced. Trump, on the other hand, will push for the repeal of ACA, and assuming Congress agrees, then a new approach will be taken to solve the healthcare issue. Our current path will not make us healthy or solve any health problems. We need to change our trajectory, and that starts with each of us owning our own health condition. Should we continue on the current path of making poor daily choices in our lifestyle, abdicating our responsibilities as states to lead, and forcing federal solutions and oversight, then we will spiral quickly in a negative direction, as our economy is crushed under the weight of the load and our actual physical health declines to the point where we are unable to even function. In the category of healthcare, the vote goes to Trump. National security is a big issue in regards to this election, because if we do not have our freedom, then we have lost what it is to be Americans. When the attack happened on 9/11, the enamel coating over our freedom was chipped, and it has been decaying ever since. We should not have to live like this. We need a president that will uphold our national security. We need a president that will turn their focus outward and let the states manage themselves internally. We need a president that will not pander to other countries, but that will lead with zeal, knowing the American system has created the most amazing place and space in the history of the world to live, love, and enjoy life. We need a president that will bolster our abilities for conventional warfare, but also have an eye on the future, which includes various forms of guerrilla warfare, technical warfare, religious or a war on terror, intellectual property warfare, nano warfare through drone attacks and other forms of warfare. We need a president that will have a vision beyond conventional and nuclear warfare. We need a president that we can trust. Do not be alarmed by the fear tactics around who has the nuclear codes. Our greatest threats are much more progressive and have nothing to do with the nuclear warfare. We need a president that we can trust, not one that deletes thousands of confidential emails and then tells us that they were about her daughter's wedding in a yoga class. We need a president that we know is going to act quickly on behalf of any American anywhere in the world and not let them be murdered as HRC did in Benghazi. HRC ignored multiple requests for help, which led to 4 Americans losing their lives. 4 months later, she flippantly said under oath, "What difference does it make how they were killed?" She was required to release all documents associated with the incident immediately. Nearly 2 years after the demand was made by a judge to turn over all the documents, 41 additional documents were found. Within these documents, it is clear that HRC knew the attack was going to happen and that she did nothing to prevent it. We need a president that will uphold our rights nationally. With direction from HRC, the IRS harassed and illegally investigated various Republican Party members, members of the NRA, and ladies with whom President Clinton has sexually assaulted. A senior IRS auditor confirmed that those in opposition to Clinton's were singled out for auditing, and that is not something we should be okay with allowing for someone running for president. Trump will build our military to a reasonable and sustainable level. He will invest and allow our country to excel ahead of the other military powers throughout the world. He will also require nations that can afford to help to actually help, so that our national debt is not further burdened by being the free police of the world. Trump can be trusted with our national secrets. He will not sell them for personal gain or to bolster his own personal foundation budget. Trump made his money the American way, by working for it. In the areas of national security, Trump gets my vote. The next and last section, which I consider to be the most important, is the appointments to the Supreme Court. This is a top issue because it affects the sustainability of our country, our culture, and our moral fabric with which our country and our leadership make decisions. This issue is number one because on this issue alone, I would make my vote for the presidency. Let's review. The U.S. federal government is made up of 3 branches. The legislative branch makes the laws and is a combination of the Senate and the House of Representatives, which together is called Congress. The executive branch is responsible for implementing and upholding the laws that are made by the legislative branch. This branch is led by the president and includes millions of government workers. The judicial branch is the Supreme Court, made up of just 9 justices. The Supreme Court holds our freedom of speech in balance, holds our right to protection from foreign countries, controls our moral code, which affects abortion, slavery, and thousands of other decisions, controls our right to own a business, go camping, own a gun, see the movie of our choice, controls our right to worship and pray, and holds our freedom of speech in balance. I mentioned in the last video that I would give an example of how our freedom of speech is affected now as a result of the current political climate. I live in the great state of Washington, in the beautiful city of Seattle. Like most coastal states, Washington's politics are driven by the populace in the urban centers. The rest of the state consistently votes conservative, yet the state is swayed in every vote by the liberal core around Seattle. The city of Seattle began an offensive attack on business this year, specifically franchise businesses. The issue is around minimum wage, but the argument was not with the minimum wage. There are other problems with the minimum wage and the push to continue to increase them instead of encouraging young people to work for the results they get in life. The problem with this particular minimum wage law is that it requires a more rapid implementation for businesses that are associated with a franchise than businesses that are just mom and pop shops. They are essentially discriminating against someone for being a part of a system. What that means is 2 sandwich shops could be owned by neighbors in a community, and because one of them invests in and gets support from a franchisor, it has to pay higher wages. What that means is that owner will either be able to make less or will have to raise his prices. By raising his prices, he may hurt his business because the shop next door is not under the same wage requirements. Do you now see how this is totally unfair and unreasonable? It is clearly unconstitutional. So how does freedom of speech come into all this? Well, let me explain what actually happened in the city of Seattle before the city council approved this discriminatory wage law. In normal situations, business owners, people of the community, anybody involved would come out and make statements and talk about how this change would affect their business. But in this particular situation, almost no one would come forward and speak on behalf of the businesses because all the business owners were so afraid of the impact on their business. The fear was that their business would be unfairly targeted by the public because of their position on the issue. So freedom of speech as a result of this legislation was definitely impacted. Business owners did not feel like they had the ability, without essentially putting everything they have on the line, to be able to even speak up and say how this was actually going to negatively impact their business. Those laws were passed locally, and because of the backlog and incredibly extreme fees to present before the Supreme Court, they were not ever taken to the Supreme Court. The laws are currently being enforced even though a mere second grader could quickly ascertain that they are unconstitutional. Voting for HRC will lead to more of these sort of unconstitutional laws, and the change of the entire playing field makes these sort of laws common and acceptable. A vote for Trump will uphold the foundational moral code that has been in place since the creation of the country. The Founding Fathers would unanimously vote for Trump and would not need to see or discuss the other issues that I have identified at all to make their choice. HRC will appoint liberal justices that will etch away at the foundational moral code by changing established standards affecting every area of our lives. Based on the list of justices that she will appoint, our entire Constitution and many of the amendments will be under threat. Trump will appoint conservative to moderate justices that will uphold the long-standing foundational moral code with which our Constitution is interpreted with. A vote for Trump in this category will have a significant positive effect on the long-term future of the country. If we allow a known criminal and consistent self-serving liar into the White House, then the next round of Supreme Court justices will overturn your First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, and 10th Amendments. For this reason alone, the vote should go to Trump. All right, let's wrap up the discussion with some closing points. HRC is untouchable by anyone, and that is just now starting to unravel as a result of Donald Trump's boldness to call them on the carpet when no one else has been willing to do so. Why is it that every time I pick up my phone I see an article from the Washington Post, New York Times, or CNN that is clearly biased to a liberal party bent on killing our foundational moral code. HRC is at the core of the crooked system. There is no argument that her abuse of her position is likened to any of the worst leaders in the history of the world. Trump is a businessman and a stereotypical nominee. When you look at what the Founding Fathers intended for political positions within the country, politicians are supposed to be people of the people. Trump is not a perfect man by any means. He is a good leader and certainly capable of leading and making decisions in difficult situations. Donald Trump will make a good president, will surround themselves with quality advisors that will give them information and recommendations on how to act. Donald Trump is a leader that will fill his cabinet with people that value the history and the future of this country. And he will make that choice based on the needs of the people, like you and me. Furthermore, HRC has proven that the core values of our country mean nothing, in fact that she wants to fight strongly against the foundational moral basis of our country. Do you really want more of the same in regards to the long-term effect of our elected officials, or do we want to see real change? Trump will be a breath of fresh air as he storms through the ranks of the political system that says, "We have always done it this way," and he will find another way. Trump really likes women. He has a beautiful wife, and she is not the first beautiful wife he has had. She seems to be intelligent and outspoken. Would she put up with an unfaithful Donald? Maybe he has, but if so, why do claims come out now instead of at any point in the past? Why would one of these women have not attempted to sue him since he is worth so much well before this time? Those are questions you have to answer. Trump is a great businessman and has spent his life working to build a business in good and bad economical times. He seems to have stabilized morally in his later years, but who knows what he has or has not done. In all, this is not one of the top 5 most important issues that we should be using to determine our vote. HRC said she didn't do many of the things that she did do, and we have proof that she did. Trump knows how to work the current governmental system, and he has made that work for himself in his business, which is his legal right. If he was doing illegal things, he would have been prosecuted and put in jail because he does not have the political protection. Honestly, there are few people that would risk every penny they have ever earned in addition to literally being threatened for their lives. Finding any one perfect person to fill that position would be impossible. Can he do it? Yes, for sure, and he wants to serve this country. He has put himself in the line of fire and has literally jumped in front of the train on behalf of the American people by standing up to the Clintons, as no one else has been willing to do. Trump is willing to lead the country based on the moral code that our country was founded upon. Washington has a crooked group, and your vote for HRC continues that regime. I am voting for Donald Trump because he is by far the most sensible and reasonable choice for this country. I hope that you will join me for the sake of the future of this great nation. Thank you.